Good afternoon. First of all, we would like to thank you for being here. We are going to be having a panel discussion right now on many different branches of the military. So this covers the service industry or pathway. And what we will do is we will start out with each one of you. If you could please give us your full name, your title, and the military branch that you are with. After that, we will proceed into our questions. We can start with you.
My name is Marcus Zeller. I'm a Staff Sergeant, United States Army.
My name is Fansler. I'm a sonar technician, first class petty officer for the U.S. Navy.
My name is Staff Sergeant Yahya, the local Marine Corps recruiter.
My name is Natasha Smith. I am a technical sergeant in the United States Air Force.
Great, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you guys being here. We're gonna start with a first round of questions, really like to focus on your education and how you got to where you're at today. One of the things that we really like to know is how'd you pick your area of study? How did you join the military? And what kind of education do you have that helps you within joining the military? We'll just start down at the end and you can work our way back.
All right, so before I was a recruiter, I work in intelligence. So I work with the NSA, the CSA, all kinds of other different organizations. So I've always been interested in computers and technology. So when I talked to my recruiter, it was just something that was brought up at the time. It was something that was available, and the bonus didn't hurt either. So that's always a helpful thing, but I was definitely interested in it, and then I took a couple tests and it worked out. And since then I have not looked back at all. So it's been a great opportunity for me. Coming fresh out of high school and got right into it and got all the training I needed. Now I'm working on my bachelor's degree online. So big benefit.
And I imagine part of that is paid for by the military.
Absolutely. All the online schooling is paid for by the military. And then if I choose to get out, I have the GI Bill in addition to that. So just additional money to do for education.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I know for myself, at 17 years old, when I initially joined the military, my grandfather was in the ECDs back during the Vietnam era. He had quite a few certifications through the military as an electrician. He managed to land jobs with Universal Studios, Coca-Cola, and a couple other companies. So that was a big selling point for me for advancement once I got out of the military. I initially joined mainly for the college money to get my degree paid for. I wasn't sure what I wanted to major in. Since I've been in service, I've been working on my bachelor's as well in agriculture at Florida State. About 15 more classes away from graduating. And initially when I joined, it was only the engineering program that I unfortunately didn't qualify for, but I am still in advanced field technology, so it's going to help me in my future endeavors.
So I joined the Marine Corps just like these two gentlemen straight out of high school. Originally joined the Marine Corps primarily because of the challenge that it had. And I enlisted to be a logistician of business management because ultimately I see myself being 45 years old, owning my own business. And so I decided logistics made the perfect sense as far as wanting to create a business. And so I enlisted in logistics, currently went through school for Lean Six Sigma 6. And like these two gentlemen as well, I'm also in college, currently pursuing a degree in exercise science with one day, hopefully, receiving a doctorate in physical therapy.
So I'm a little bit different. I did not join right out of high school. I tried the college thing for about a year or two. I did terribly and realized I needed some direction in my life. And that was what ultimately brought me to the Air Force. And when I walked into the recruiter's office, I tested pretty well, and I learned that they had a linguistics job. And English was always my favorite subject, so I went with it. And so I was able to learn a foreign language on the Air Force's dime and work in the intelligence community as well, just like him down there, and did that for the first 8 years, and now I get to be a recruiter. So I'm currently also in college, working on my associates, and it'll be in human resources.
So when you decided you didn't like college and you thought about the U.S. Air Force, how did military come to you? What made you think of military?
So my parents were both in the military, and my mother was still in the military as I reached adulthood. That was what made it seem like an option to me. Unfortunately, I did not have any recruiters that I was aware of. They weren't in my school system or anything like that. So I think it was really my parents having been in that made that a viable idea to me.
I'm going to jump off topic a little bit here, Jessica, because I was one of the privileged who was able to go on an Army tour with some of our former U.S. Army sergeants that have actually moved out of state now and been reassigned. But I was blown away at the number of job opportunities in the military, things that you wouldn't even think of. So what I'm going to ask each one of you to do briefly is just kind of run down some of the different jobs that are kind of out of the ordinary that a student today wouldn't think of. Because I think a lot of times in the military, we think of soldiers, you know, battle, and maybe the infantry. But we don't always think of some of those other non-traditional jobs that are available. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll start with you, Sergeant Zeller, just kind of listing maybe 3 or 4 jobs kind of out of the ordinary in the military and the branches that you serve to let students know some of the opportunities available for them.
So in the Army, we have over 150 different things you can do. So we do have an infantry section. We have engineering, which is a huge field. We have a huge mechanics field, working on the vehicles that we take out. Intelligence, obviously. And then we have a lot of other fields that you wouldn't think about, like legal departments, human resources. We have a lot of hands-on, like carpentry and masonry specialists, electricians, things that you can use definitely once you get out of the military that you can make a lot of money in the civilian sector for.
What was that one job where they sit and they watch from a room with all these TV monitors where all of the military staff are situated? Do you know what I'm speaking of?
So what you're referring to, ma'am, is something called the COC, which is essentially the command post.
Yes.
So you're going to have various people from various branches doing various jobs, looking at all these different screens, basing their decisions off of what's going on in that particular area.
So they always know where everybody is, pretty
Correct.
much.
Correct,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
So for myself, U.S. Navy is particular with our nuclear engineering program. They're the only branch of service that offers working on nuclear reactors for a guard. Mass communications, so dealing with newscasting, photography. We have Navy musicians, and pretty much our daily job is we have 96 ratings in the Navy. The only job I don't offer, and I know that can be a hard Sergeant Zeller's offers is veterinary. So that's the only job I'm limited from, but almost every other field of work you can think of, we offer.
So I'm going to copy exactly what these two gentlemen just said. We in the Marine Corps, we also as well have well over 150 jobs. Some of the things that most high school students aren't thinking about when they're thinking Marine Corps is they're not thinking about cameramen, people who work the Marine Corps social media. They're not thinking of firefighters. You know, these are things that definitely all we can do as Marines, because being a Marine is first, but then we also have secondary jobs, all of which, like these two gentlemen named their jobs, which do transfer very well outside into the civilian sector.
So the Air Force is pretty much the same as all of the other branches. We have 150 careers as well. I would say most people come to the Air Force looking for, like, you think you're gonna get mechanics jobs, you're gonna be working on all the planes, but we also have electrical jobs, we have HVAC, ground equipment, maintenance jobs, and we have computer programming as well as like a science specialist type of job. So we have some very in-depth technical jobs that we're looking to find people to do that I think most people aren't aware that the Air Force has.
What about sports? I thought there was something about sports when,
As far as like sports teams,
yes.
yes. So I know I can only say this for the Marine Corps, but I'm pretty sure Air Force, Navy, Army.
I
you
know
guys all
the
have sports
Army
teams.
does because I heard something about that.
Right. So we all have different sports teams, and they all compete at the not D1 level, but the semi-pro level, with the possibility of eventually making it into pros or making it into the Olympics itself. Wrestling, baseball, basketball, swimming, I mean, you name it. If it's a sport, the military, we have some form or function of it.
And I think that's really good for the students out there. So many times when I've gone to different career fairs, the students have said they want to be a pro basketball player, or they want to, you know, do football or baseball. And the fact that you can actually get a job in sports in the military, I never knew that. So as an adult, if I didn't know, how do we expect a student to know?
So I personally had at least one officer that I've worked for. She's worked for the Navy volleyball team, and so every year she would try out for the team, and then she got picked up 3 years in a row. For 3 months, she would go play professionally with the Navy volleyball team, and she would do that. And then when that season was done, would come back and do the regular job.
So another thing that we have is the Army or Warrior Fit team. So you figure like the CrossFit games, kind of unconventional workouts. We do have teams that compete in those too. It's pretty cool to watch too.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. One question we get asked quite a bit about from our students is salary and benefits. We know the military has strong benefits on education and paying for the education while you're in the military. Can you explain to us a little bit the difference between a salary for entry-level positions all the way up through degreed positions within the military? We'll start right over here.
Okay, so if you join right out of high school, zero other experience to account for, you're gonna get about $1,700 a month. That's just base pay. That's not accounting for the other benefits like housing benefits or your food money or anything like that, or the college education money. So I'm not actually familiar with what an officer will get paid. They have a completely different pay grade than the enlisted side would, but you have higher requirements to meet, such as you will need a bachelor's degree at a minimum with a pretty high GPA in order to qualify for that kind of a program. But they are making a lot more money. You can kind of liken it to enlisted side of the house being the technicians doing the work, and then officer side of the house being more like management.
Very good. Sergeant Yahya?
So really, we all get paid exactly the same. There is no difference in pay.
Okay.
All enlisted, we all make the same regardless of rank. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. Regardless of our branch we serve in. With every rank, we make a few extra $100, and with every time in service, we make even more money.
Okay.
So we get paid based off our current rank and how long we've been in the military.
And see, I didn't really know that you all start out the same in the different branches. So
So
again,
that's something a lot of people don't know is because we're all branches of the federal government. So it's all
gotcha.
regulated based on
Makes total
your time
sense.
that you actually serve and what grade you are, what rank you are. So yeah.
awesome. Did they answer your questions completely? I want to skip back again and be that non-traditional thing. Can we talk a little bit about the ASVAB? Like, I know that students that are interested in the military can start to prepare now if they want to go into the field. So are there resources for them to be able to go to get prepared to be in the military? And talk a little bit about the ASVAB test.
So what we do in my office is we always recommend ASVAB for Dummies. It sounds silly, but it's a very helpful tool. And there are plenty of other resources online. If you just Google ASVAB practice test, you can find lots of different study guides and resources to help you get prepared. It's essentially asking you for 9th level grade information that you're being tested on. So really anything available in that realm will help you get prepared for the test.
Anything to add, the rest of you?
One of the resources I send some of my applicants to, or future Marines, is Khan Academy. And I have them literally start out from 1st grade math and work themselves up to try and get at least that 11th senior or 12th grade math level. Just because math does have a big portion on the ASVAB itself. And so if they start studying math again, because a lot of juniors and seniors don't really take math classes, so I use it more, Khan Academy, as a refresher for them.
Awesome.
So for most applicants, I told ASVAB study doesn't start in your 11th or 12th grade year. It actually should be starting in your freshman year of high school. If you're not taking the classes seriously for math, algebra, science, mechanics, there's so many fields that are specific to the ASVAB that when you actually are taking the actual aptitude tests, you're going to score poorly. But with some study through Khan Academy, you can help build that knowledge base for algebra, geometry, and other things you'll see those aptitudes. But if you're not studying or taking it seriously and you score lower, it's going to limit your opportunities for jobs.
Absolutely. So another thing that the Army just rolled out this year too is the U.S. Army ASVAB Challenge app. So it's available for download in the App Store. It covers the 4 harder topics of the ASVAB, so like your mathematics, your algorithms, your paragraph comprehension, words, everything like that. It's just something we kind of give out. It's not necessarily just for the Army. We definitely give it out to people who are looking at other branches too. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason. So we just want to help out whoever we can and get them where they need to be so they can get a job that they want.
Okay. So now that you're in this career in life, we want to talk a little bit about life balance. I know many times that things can change in the drop of a hat. Our son is actually in the Air Force, so I probably know a little bit more between that and the military Army tour, but how do you balance life with some of the demands that you come up against on a day-to-day basis? And then talk to us about advancement and also about challenges.
Okay, so work-life balance is kind of one of those buzzwords that you hear a lot about, and the Air Force is no different. We talk about it as well. And I would say our leadership takes it very seriously that you work hard to find that balance, because we know that if your people aren't doing well, you can't perform well at your job if you're kind of losing control. So I personally have had a little bit of experience with this. Unfortunately, last year we experienced a loss in my family, and I was able to take that time to go home and be with them when it was needed and when it was necessary, and it was encouraged by my leadership to do so and to take the time to get to a point where I was able to be productive again at work. So it's definitely very important, even in the service, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself when necessary. Another way that I try to do that is when I leave at the end of the day, usually around 5, I put the phone down and I don't look at it again until the next work day. So my weekends and my evenings, I have to take that time for myself just to make sure that I'm decompressing and unwinding from any stress I may have found while in the office. And then to answer your second question about promotion in the Air Force, it's the first 4 ranks you're gonna get just by, coming in, do your job, and stay out of trouble. No sweat off your back, it's pretty easy. After that, it'll be based off of how you score on a promotion test, which is academic based. So you can study for it, there are study guides everywhere, and it'll just be basic Air Force customs and courtesies and Air Force history. And then your performance evaluation. So as long as you're working hard to do your job and taking time to better yourself as a person, develop a little bit professionally, it's pretty easy to move up in the ranks.
So talking about the work and personal life, you definitely have to balance that morale, right? You have to definitely take care of your subordinates, right? I want to say we are all E6s. We're all leaders in some capacity. So one thing we as leaders have to do is definitely look out for our subordinates' morale. We have to make sure that they're good to go, because when things go south real bad, at work at least, we need to know that they can bounce back from it. We need to know that home is taken care of, wife, husband, whatever the case may be at home, that they're good to go. That way they can focus primarily at work. To answer your second question, as far as advancements in the Marine Corps, specifically E1, E2, and E3, the first 3 ranks are given. And then after that is based off your proficiency, meaning how well you're good at your job, your conduct, how well you are at respecting your superiors and your subordinates, how well you shoot on the rifle range, and your physical fitness scores.
So for the first question of work-life balance, I would highly agree with
Staff Sergeant. Staff Sergeant, yeah.
I definitely agree with Staff Sergeant Yahya, whereas leadership positions, we have to look out for our junior, or for me, junior sailors. When I understand that there's something wrong going on at home with one of my junior sailors, I can afford them more time to spend with their family. I know for myself personally, as my own story, back in 2014 when I was recruiting in Fresno, California, my firstborn daughter passed away. My command allowed me to take 4 months off to readjust, and they really looked out for me. People were traveling from 3 hours away to come visit me to make sure I was okay. It gave me the time necessary that I needed to seek counseling and help me to get back to where I mentally needed to be just so I could do my job. And that's the same kind of thing I forward off to my junior sailors, because I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I I want to make sure that their home and family life is good, because that's what the Navy did for me. They looked out for me. For your second question about advancement, I'm more similar to Sergeant Smith over there, where it is, for the most part, it's about a 50-50 split. 50% of it is you take an advancement examination, and depending on how well you know and can do your job, so the more proficient you are at your job, the better you're going to score on your advancement exams. And then the other half of that is your evaluation cycle, so your actual work effort, your leadership skills, volunteer opportunities, things you're doing for your command to make yourself shine. And those are what the good aspects.
So you just said the word volunteer. So we have a lot of students in our buildings that need volunteer hours. So when you think that, why do I have to volunteer? It's a part of what we do to get ourselves ready for what we do in all areas of our lives, even in the military, they have to volunteer. So I just wanted to put that in there real quickly, just to kind of encourage you that it's not just because someone's telling you to do something, but there's actually purpose behind that.
And if I could add that real quick, I know at least in most branches of service, we do volunteer events around the world. When Katrina hit, we would usually the military and first responders out there pulling people off the roofs, giving them home, providing food and water. When the Fukushima reactor happened, it was 2012, 2013 time frame, the Navy was the first people out there giving medical and food aid, and then the Navy engineering group were trying to help them get the reactor back into stability so it didn't have a meltdown. You'll see us around the world, we're using the first responders in those kind of situations.
So as far as volunteer work, it's huge. I mean, reaching out through Beth, when COVID hit, some of us from the office were here at Life Church helping hand out the food pantry. So it's something you'll have time to do. And as you do it, I'm sure it's the same in the other branches, you get awards for doing that for your volunteer hours for your service. And those down the road help you qualify for promotions. Definitely something that stands out among your peers. As far as balancing work life and personal life, it's difficult at times in the military because you have training that you have to do, everything that you got to do for your job. But it is very big on the leaders, especially some of us who have had subordinate soldiers or sailors, and so be it. It's definitely something that we try to get them out of the office or get them out of whatever environment they're in. Even on the weekends, having a barbecue or something like that, just building morale, getting to know your friends and your fellow soldiers, or so be it. And just taking that time for family especially, because that's how you reset, so that way you can come refreshed back to work. As far as promotions and advancements, it's pretty much the same across the board for us too. The first 4 are automatic. Within the first 2 years, you reach an E4, and then from there, it's based on your physical fitness, your weapons qualification, how well you know your regulations and everything like that. You'd be in front of your first sergeants, your command sergeant majors, and they kind of base you against your peers on who qualifies for promotion. So from there, it gets a little bit more difficult, but it's doable for sure.
So basically, you can kind of ride through the first couple years with the auto promos, and then as you go beyond that, it's kind of what you want to do. You can stay or you can advance.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. What about, tell us, each of you, what was a really great achievement, whether it be you or someone else, one of your comrades, what was a really great achievement that each of you really means a lot to you and you really feel like you made a difference?
So everybody else is looking confused, so I'll go ahead and start. When I was recruiting in Fresno, California in 2012, I did really phenomenal. And so we already talked about advancement a little bit, how it usually happens. With myself, based off of my production members and volunteer events I did in Fresno, California, we actually made national news for helping a World War II veteran. And being recognized like that in my performance, I was meritoriously promoted to the next pay grade from E5 to E6. So unlike having to take a test and get a performance mark average, the accolades and my hard work are what my command deemed me worthy of automatically taking the next promotion. And having my command back me and recognize my hard work was probably one of the most satisfying things because you don't usually see that anywhere else. It was an automatic promotion. So that was really awesome to see, and the pay started immediately that day when I got to know.
Very good.
So it's difficult to think about yourself sometimes because you're so used to worrying about your soldiers, your people, your subordinates. Prime example is one of the soldiers that I had at one of my first duty stations, one of my first locations. I mentored him and trained him in his job and everything, and then kind of helping him get through the tuition assistance and everything. He was working on his degree. He actually went to Colorado State University online, and now he's an officer in the Army. So he actually seeked me out later on, I think it was last year, and he found me, and he's like, hey, thank you for your help, because now I'm in charge of you. And I was like, oh, thanks, I appreciate that, sir. So it worked out.
I love that. That's so awesome.
Okay, so mine is a little bit, I'll keep it a little bit vague, but so when I was working as a Chinese linguist, I was also working with the NSA, and I was able to take some information, I uncovered the information and was able to write it into a report that I then shared with a joint task force team that included a lot of other important agencies in the government. And ultimately, the publication of this report resulted in the arrest of the target, which may not sound super impressive, but it's rare to be able to see a direct result and a direct consequence of something that you worked on personally and got to collaborate with all of these great people with and see it happen. So I think that was probably one of the coolest things I've been able to do in my career.
I know for me personally, it's just the ability to lead. I mean, just the ability to give back to the Marines, your soldiers, your sailors, airmen. You know, because you watch them come into the service at a very young age, and then you kind of mold them, mentor them throughout their lives, and they end up succeeding very well for themselves as a civilian, or as, you know, later on in their military career, become officers. And so they sometimes will call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Staff Sergeant Yahya, I'm so glad I listened to your advice. I took your advice 4 years ago, and I rolled with it. And, you know, it's like, hey, man, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Can we talk about this later? You know, but it's definitely the ability to lead.
That's so awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing those stories. I think they're all amazing. And thank you for your service. Very much. Thank you for your service. I think one of the things we wanted to touch on is kind of twofold. I know you guys do some recruitment, so you talk to high school kids, you go in and trying to get them to recruit to come into your program. One of the things we want to discuss is, one, what advice would you give them as to why to enter the military? I mean, we've kind of talked about that a little bit. And what are some of the really big significant traits that they can have when coming into the military?
So my biggest piece of advice would be to just keep an open mind. I feel like one of the biggest reasons that people may not consider the military coming out of high school is you're always told, at least I know I was always told, you get out of high school, go right to college. And you think that maybe joining the military might be derailing you from that goal of getting a college degree. But it doesn't have to. You can view the military, any branch really, is a stepping stone to your ultimate goal. It's just a way to help you get there and to maybe get it paid for in the process. As far as traits, we just need people who are willing to buckle down and do the work, so be hardworking, and to keep a positive attitude. Nobody wants to have to handhold somebody through something. You need to be able to pull yourself up and work through any adversity you might find.
And before we move along, I want to hit on the fact that you are a female in the military, and we call that in our school buildings non-traditional in many cases. Did you consider that before you went in? Like when I was watching those kids 3 years ago at the U.S. Army basic training, I was like, oh my gosh, I could never do this. My son like, Mom, it's so easy. How was that for you? Did you process that? Did you not worry about it? Did you just go in? How did you feel? And I know there's other women too, but how did you feel about that?
So I actually never once stopped to consider the fact that I was a female when I was coming to enlist. It didn't cross my mind. It was never brought up in any other sense than filling out the paperwork when I was enlisting, and it has never been brought up in my entire career.
So it's no big deal.
It hasn't held me back from anything. It hasn't stop me from participating in stuff, and no one has ever treated me any differently based off of that.
Because there might be some young ladies out there that have those questions, and I think it's good for them to know it's not a big deal. If you want to do it and put your mind to doing it, doesn't matter if you're male or female, just do it. Good job. Okay, sorry I interrupted the thought process.
I know for me, I would definitely say just talk to a military recruiter, whether it's Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. Just come talk to any one of us. We're all fairly approachable. Ask us questions. Definitely ask those tough questions sometimes. It's like, hey, how's the Marines really doing this? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there, obviously, especially on the internet these days, on social media. But definitely, come to the source. Find out exactly what each branch of the military is all about and what we do and what we can do for you. Some of the traits is obviously those soft skills like self-confidence, leadership, management skills, people skills, discipline. These are things that I don't think any one of us is born with, that we have to learn through various ways, and the military being one of them.
So I know one of the big common misconceptions is many people think that they come talk to a recruiter and sign some piece of paperwork in my office, they've just signed their life away. And the funny thing is,
I see the last panel.
none of us sitting here as military recruiters can put you in the military. All we do is help facilitate paperwork and help you do your waivers, and then give you general information. There's nothing I can do in my office for the paperwork you can sign that's going to sign your life away for 4 years. So many kids are just scared to come talk to us because they think that's my commitment, they're going to get me, they're going to take me straight overseas, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I have plenty of people who come into my office just to sit down and talk with me, to gather basic information, and I follow up with them in a week or two. Hey, how are you doing? What are you thinking about? And you know what? I want to go overseas college instead, or I want to do something else. And I'm fine with that. The military is not for everybody. It takes a special breed of people who want to go off and dedicate their lives to military service. So I have no problem with just information gathering. That's all it is. I love talking to people to let them know what benefits are available. As to what I'm looking for, hardworking people. I don't care what background you come from or what your personal beliefs are. As long as you come and you put in a hard work ethic and you're able to contribute to my team and you're able to work hard, that's what I'm always looking for.
Perfect. Love that.
So he hit the nail on the head. It's just a matter of, coming into the office, talking to us. Even at schools, which obviously right now it's a little challenging, but reaching out on social media platforms, just hitting us up. It's too easy to talk to us. Like he said, it's your future. I'm not going to be at basic training with you. So pick what you want to do. So do what's in your heart, what's in your best interest, and don't let others decide your fate. Just take charge of your future. As far as things we look for, it's pretty standard across the board. Just have that motivation, be innovative think outside the box, because you're going to have to at some point in your job, depending what you pick and what you want to do. There's the standard that everybody does, just A, B, C, and then there's something that you might be able to contribute to the team that might help win the mission one day. So just think outside the box and be passionate about what you're doing.
Hey, Jessica, do you have any other questions today?
I think they did a great job.
Yes. We want to thank you like Jessica did. Thank you so much for your service. It is a great sacrifice that you are in the military and serve so many, and that does not go unnoticed. This is going to wrap up our session for the military human services pathway. And just if you have any questions at all, you can go to the web for the Army, the Navy, the Marines, or the Air Force. And there's also a local, they're all in the same building, I believe, in Rockford. So you could hit one right after the other if you wanted to go in person. Is it Highgrove Place? Is that where
it's the actual address is 621 Highgrove Place. It's right next to Five Guys. I'm a food junkie, so most of us are, because we go there every other day. So if you know where Five Guys is at, you're going to know right where we're at.
All right, well, thanks again. And that wraps it up.